So we have to have a little talk about my Glen Cook project. I'm struggling. I read The Tyranny of the Night about 2 weeks ago now, and I started the next book in the Instrumentalities of the Night series, and I am straight up not having a good time. I don't know what it is about the book, but I can't do it. I know I said I was going to read everything Glen Cook wrote this year, but if I'm having a bad time, I don't want it to ruin the rest of the books in his bibliography. Let me just talk for a minute about what's going on with that series. So I mentioned it before. It takes place in like 14th century Europe during the Crusades. Everything's been renamed. Like he went full Guy Gavriel K, just took a big chunk of history and shaved the serial numbers off and made it his own thing, which is great, but there's a lot and it's dense. It is not written in the same way a Guy Gavriel K book is. It is written almost the exact same as The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. It's got that detached historical view of the events, and then it will zoom in on characters and kind of see from their POV, but it is like very different than anything else Glen Cook has written. Now, some people may love that. You know, he has a very wide range of writing style, but it's just not doing it for me. And in the second book, I just like didn't care. I'm like 20% of the way through it. I barely know what's going on and I don't care. In the first one, I will say that book ended in a way that I have wanted to see for a very long time. I talked about it in my wrap up recently. You see magic used in ways that I've always wanted to see. You see how magic is interacting with things like cannons and the way gods would get in the way of humanity progressing or figuring out how to deal with them. It has some really cool stuff, like the little ice age is happening early and it's spreading. The world is slowly turning to ice, so there's less and less hospitable land, and everyone's like, well, yeah, this is happening, and there's all these creatures of the night, which are like the magical creatures or the gods and demons or whatever they want to call them. And it's like, yeah, there's such a high concentration on the frontier. And then someone's like, well, you think there's more there because they're being shoved toward us along with the spread of the ice? And I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, that's really interesting. Like there is some very good stuff going for those books, but there's a lot going against them too. I can really respect that Glen Cook went for it with that series, but I'm not enjoying it. And so I cannot force myself to keep reading them. I'm still going to consider them like completed for me because I understand what the series is doing and I can appreciate how different it is from other things Glen Cook has done. That leaves me with a little less to read to finish off my project and a lot less stress. Right now I'm reading Gilded Latin Bones, which is book 13 in the Garrett P.I. series. I only have one more after that, Wicked Bronze Ambition. And I'm telling you, something changed in the way Glen Cook wrote around 2008 because Cruel Zinc Melodies reads like the older Garrett stuff. Gilded Latin Bones does not. It feels like there was a tonal shift or a stylistic shift in like Glen Cook's brain or something. I'm not against it. It reads fine, but it's just very different. And I think now that I have read 90% of his bibliography, you can see when his style changed. Like the mid 80s was a huge shift in the way he wrote. And that's when like The Black Company came out and the sequels that are amazing and the first Garrett P.I. novel and all four of his space opera books that are fantastic, might be some of the best stuff he's ever written. And so, yeah, the shift has been strange. I'm reading it and it reads fast. It flows like the Garrett stuff that I'm used to, but it just feels different. And I don't know if it's a good thing yet. I guess we'll see by the end of the book because I'm going to assume that Wicked Bronze Ambition is written in the same style. And well, what else does that leave me? That leaves me with two other books. So we're looking at only 4 Glen Cook novels. The other 2 are A Matter of Time, which is one of his earlier books. It is distinct. It uses like these plot lines in alternating chapters and they weave back and forth in time, which I hate. So we'll see how this goes. This was originally published in 1985. So we're looking at like the era where Glen Cook was on fire. So I'm hoping that it's good. It was republished in 2011 by Nightshade Books along with a bunch of his other stuff. I'm really hoping it's good. I'm going to start with the audiobook. If the narrator sucks, I'll read it because sometimes the narrator's bad. Like Instrumentalities of the Night, I thought it was a bad narrator. So I opened up the book and I was like, this is incomprehensible. What is going on? I can't read this. So it was all the names and places, and it read like a dry textbook in some places. The exposition was just like something else. So back to A Matter of Time. It combines elements of science fiction, specifically time travel, with crime fiction and a spy thriller. So like, boy, he's going to be cooking with that kind of story, but the whole changing of the timeline and stuff is going to drive me nuts. The novel like expands on this theme of like American prisoners of war being brainwashed in communist China. So it's like a Manchurian Candidate kind of thing. So that sounds cool. Like I'm very intrigued by A Matter of Time. What I am more intrigued by is the last book that I'm going to read from Glen Cook, and that is The Dragon Never Sleeps. Came out in 1988. We're talking about peak Glen Cook, and it is a space opera, and it's one of his favorite books that he wrote, and it's one that a lot of people love. Also, Glen Cook said one of his favorite things he wrote was A Matter of Time. So the last two I'm going to be reading are his preferred books of his, so I think that's pretty special. So let me give a premise for it. It's an epic story set in a galaxy-spanning empire commonly known as Canon Space. Canon, not like Kablooey Cannon, but the Canon. It has been several thousand years since humans defeated and subjugated all the rival species in their part of the galaxy. Canon law is enforced by the guard ships, giant sentient space vessels with an immortal crew of clone soldiers. That sounds amazing. Like, holy crap. Like, I hadn't dug too deep into this because I knew it was just going to be good, but this is ridiculous. That's awesome. And guard ships represent the pinnacle of human military, technical, and scientific superiority, which has left them, unchallenged for millennia. No enemy can escape their harsh and swift judgment, be it rebellious aliens or scheming trade barons of the great houses. And I think the thing is, like, there is someone that can challenge it, and they're back type thing. And I've heard that you don't really know who the good guy is. Like, you follow both sides, and you're rooting for both of them at some point, and you really don't know who the good guys are until like halfway through the book. So I can't wait to get to this. It's going to be all sorts of like political intrigue, and I think it's going to be a good one. Not to mention, it's not a gigantic book because Glen Cook really has respect for your time. I just wanted to talk to you all about how the cooking ain't going well, but we're going to keep moving on. I'm still going to buy some like really nice copies of the Instrumentalities of the Night. I'm hoping that future me will have a greater appreciation for those books. But for now, it's not crushing me that I'm not enjoying them. I mean, that's just how it works sometimes. Sometimes a book does not vibe very well. And I just want to say we're going to move on, enjoy these last few novels from Glen Cook. And when I get it wrapped up, we're going to be doing reviews and tier lists. And then I get to start reading The Black Company again because I'm due up for a 5th or 6th read of the first book, and then we can reread the whole series. So let me know in the comments if you've had problems with Instrumentalities of the Night, or if you even knew it existed, because most people don't, which is why it ended at 4 books, because the publisher was supposed to give you more and they were like, hey bro, wrap it up, we're done. So I've heard the 4th book is rushed. Anyways, thanks for watching, and with that, I'll see you next time.